Fresh and infotainment content daily.
Capital 100.4 FM. Harare's heartbeat.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Dollar right here on ZTN Prime. Tonight we are unpacking the Mines and Minerals Bill. We continue with this unpacking coverage right here on ZTN Prime. We are covering this from our Herald House studios in the capital of Harare, Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe's vast mineral wealth has long been described as the engine for economic growth, yet for decades the country has operated under outdated mining laws. That could actually soon change. After years of drafting, rejections and delays, the long-awaited Mines and Minerals Bill of 2025 has finally been gazetted. The bill promises to chart a new course for the mining sector, including social responsibility certificates, tightening environmental safeguards, and establishing a modern digital system to bring greater transparency to licensing. Now, it also seeks to resolve long-standing farmer-miner disputes while formally reserving small-scale mining for Zimbabweans. But many questions actually still remain in regards to this bill. Will these reforms really truly build confidence in the sector or simply leave old problems unresolved? Who really stands to benefit from this bill? And can it unlock a mining sector that really works for all Zimbabweans? Joining me in studio this evening are Lincoln Majogo, a legal practitioner, Chris Morove, a small-scale miner, and Minerals Bill 2025, who stands to benefit. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the chase.
Good evening.
Now, let's cut straight to the chase. The bill introduces a mining court. Now, this is one of the provisions that this new bill is providing. When we discussed this bill time and time again, and this is the one issue that most people say is actually a good thing that's coming out of it. It is to be constituted as a specialized division of the High Court with jurisdiction to hear most of the mining disputes. Now, do you really believe that this framework would truly improve our strike right here?
Looking on that, it's a merit because the act that we've been using of that act of 1961, all the disputes that were coming in, they were all resolved by the administrative court. But now having this specialist court, where we're having two judges who are going to be trained in terms of mining law, it will help in addressing the bill, in addressing the disputes, the farmer disputes, the small-scale miners disputes, even also the environmental consent disputes, because the administrative court, they were having more issues and they were taking long to address. So having a specialist court is a merit.
Plesmore, do you share the same sentiments?
Well, as for me, I would like to say partly I do share the same sentiments with my legal colleague. However, to some extent, I would like to believe that the court per se sort of gives rights to miners and not to farmers. Because if you see it, the access to courts in this case will only be achieved or only be for the miners and not for the farmers per se, because you note that they do not have the financial muscle to approach the courts. So to a certain extent, we can say to a lesser extent, it does gives access, the right to access to the courts, but it only limits that right to farmers. It only gives that right to miners.
So in instances where it's a farmer-miner kind of dispute, the court is not going to be able to expedite the process?
Indeed.
Okay, do you also share the same sentiments?
Thank you so much. So there are two issues. To a large extent, I share the same sentiments that my learned colleagues have attributed. There's one, the issue of expertise, because the jurisprudence which has been coming out from our courts, to some extent, has been conflicting with the position on the ground. So definitely having a mining court will allow those judges to have expertise, which is critical in resolving disputes. But the second issue is the time within which these disputes are resolved. Because the Mines Act, in fact, even the bill as it stands, has so many procedures that you have to follow for you to even get to the mining court. So there are certain instances where you have to go to the PMD, you also have to go to the minister, and then you have to go to the mining court. And we are saying in an investor's mindset, they are looking at time which is going to be taken. So it's a positive thing that is going to be a division of the High Court, but there is definitely need for improvement for having rules which expedites that process so that we don't have disputes taking 5 years. to resolve because there are so many channels.
Okay, Chris, you're a miner yourself. Do you see this court benefiting you precisely because it is being made for you?
Yes, I think it is a good development, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let's see how it operates in reality when the bill is actually made into law.
Now,
then improvements can take place as we go along.
Now, Chris, let me hear from you. In the past, before we decided to have this mining court or a court that is going to be specifically dealing with mining issues, what was the process like if you were to go to the courts with your issue? How long was it taking and how painstaking was it?
Before this development, and as it is at the moment, I think any disputes that come up between a farmer or a miner and so on, it's dealt with through the mining directors, the mining affairs board, and so on. So it's a process that has been taking too long. I think with a specifically constituted court, which has to look at these issues, it's a much better development. It's a much better situation.
Robert, I see you nodding in agreement.
Well, I think I cannot really reinvent what everybody else has said. There are always pros and cons. Perhaps one thing we need to do before we appreciate something is to try and unpack why the current status quo was not working. If the Mining Affairs Board certainly did have learned people who knew the intricacies of mining, so why didn't that work? So you may have a court, but if you do not have the urgency in the system, so we should look at the system and not exactly say perhaps we're giving a remedy. What are we remedying? Why was the current system not working? It had all the beauty that is needed with regards bringing finality to issues, but it's just that there's been a lot of lethargy and inertia. Where's that coming from? So if you're going to have a court and it's got court systems, we're talking about two judges, but they're systems. If the system doesn't work, you'll still have court cases going on for years and years because there is a system that is ill. Okay. And not per se the fact that it has been ostracized or carved out to serve. I will speak, for example, towards certain small things. Sometimes you go to the Mining Affairs Board with something that needs a 90-day turnaround, doesn't turn around. 6 months down the line, no determination has been made. Why? If you then go deep in, you'll probably hear that there's an exodus of workforce. This has been lost, that has been lost. So it's the system. So if the system is okay, if the system is dealt with, if we go in and interrogate what was wrong today, then whatever it is that we're creating for tomorrow will be absolutely succinct and fit for purpose.
Okay, so essentially if we're moving the old court system into this new court, we're essentially not solving or remedying the problem that we did have.
We should, that's what we need to interrogate and see that we're not just taking, for example, you drive up, you go to the garage, you say perhaps to your mechanic, I think my car needs a new battery. And eventually we'll probably be told, no, I think your battery needs a new car. So that's what we want to avoid. We want to make sure that indeed the car needs a new battery and not the other way around. So we should just understand what the real problem was and make sure that whatever was wrong in the current system will not affect the new remedy.
Lincoln, what was one of those issues that made it quite difficult to solve a court case? Robert just gave us an example of, a case where this would happen and that would happen, but what was the correct legalities, that were involved when it comes to solving issues in the mining sector?
So one of the issues was fragmentation of the dispute system. So you would find out that there are certain disputes where you needed to go to the PMD, the Provincial Mining Director. There are certain disputes where you needed to go to the Mining Affairs Board, and there are certain disputes where you need to escalate to the Administrative Court. And there are certain disputes where you would then have to go to the High Court and to the Supreme Court. So one of the issues which was emerging was lack of expertise in dealing with mining issues. For example, do you get an EIA certificate first before you get mining title? Or you get mining title and then you apply for an EIA before you start operations. You would find that there are judgments in the courts that say you need an EIA before you even get title. Just that document, they are saying you need an EIA. So as a result of that confusion, it then comes down to even the administrative issues, which comes first. And sometimes you then have duplication of issues where the same dispute is being heard before the PMD, before the Mining Affairs Board, before the minister. And it's costly to investors. So it's just one of those issues which prevail under the circumstances.
Now, Brian, if you could just clarify it for me, just real quick. Does the creation of this new court automatically mean we now have experts that are dealing with mining cases that we could not have while we were on the other courts as well, in the other courts rather?
Like what my learned colleague was saying, it's a positive. I'm still saying in the merits. It's a positive in the sense like, for example, the bill is addressing some of the concerns that were there. For example, double allocation. Now the bill is talking about the register, where now there is, in as much, we are not going to have this double allocation. And also, like, for example, other property rights that are the way that were enraged before, the bill is addressing those issues. But now, even this a specialist court, more issues now they are going to be dealt by the specialist court, not to be given just a high court, where, like, for example, it's given to a judge who is not invested in that information or is not invested in that skill. So having a specialist court, it will address certain issues which needs skilled knowledge in that field.
Okay.
For example, when there's a proper dispute, for example, when there's a farmer and a minor dispute in terms of like property rights or in terms of allocation, now the judge will be knowledgeable. But the only worry is now, are the farmers going to afford having legal counsel? Are the small scale miners going to afford going to that system? The system is good. This new creation of a court is good, but now it's going to be costly to the farmer, it's going to be costly to the small scale miner, yet now the bill is not going to be addressed these concerns that are coming in.
Now, Brian, it's a good thing that you do mention the issues of farmer mining disputes, because now my next question would then be, one of the significant changes that is being made by this new bill is to ensure that farmers is actually making farmers continue cultivating on mining land as long as agreements are lodged with the Mining Affairs Board. I don't know if this is a step in the right direction or wrong direction. Chris, I will keep coming back to you first because you're a miner. If you are to share the same land with a farmer, how sustainable is it?
I'm also a farmer, by the way.
Okay, so if you are to share your land, farming and mining at the same time,
Well,
how does that work?
What really happens is the farmer has got his land. The miner comes to look for minerals on that land. That is usually the case. You don't have cases where there's already existing mining title and somebody wants to come and farm on that mine. No. So it's really the issue of the miner, in inverted commas, infringing upon the farmer's land. And I've seen those situations developing, right? So we need to ensure that the system, when such issues come up, can actually resolve those disputes in a manner that is win-win, if I may use that
But
term.
now the win-win that they are saying or that they are suggesting is that a farmer may then continue farming even after someone says, you know, I want to claim this mining claim here. That's what I'm asking, that does it really work? Should we have mining and farming happening on the same piece of land?
You can, depending on the size of the land.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lincoln?
It's going to be a very, very difficult implementation. It's going to be a very, very difficult thing to implement because already there's no framework for farmers and miners to agree. Usually there's no agreement, and this is why they then have to bring other parties to resolve that agreement. So the bill is coming to say, once you have reached an agreement, you then reduce that agreement into writing, which then has to be registered with the Mining Affairs Board. But it's not addressing who bears the cost of that, because definitely you will need maybe a lawyer, a skilled personnel, to deal with the arrangements, who is going to afford, who is going to pay that, and what fees are going to be paid when you go to register that agreement with the Mining Affairs Board. So it's theoretically, it's a very, very, very good idea, but practically it's going to be difficult because farmers and miners almost never agree. Their interests are just different. And there's a feeling that in Zimbabwe, miners have more preference, or they are better protected, because there's this view that mining is more strategic national interest than farming. But we are living in a world where there's climate change. We need food security. So even farming also has a national interest. So having to balance that practically is going to be difficult. But it's a good idea theoretically.
Let's might see you nodding in agreement. Do you concur with what he's saying?
Indeed, I concur with what my little colleague is saying, because you take note that the view is that a farmer can still cultivate on top of the land, or on his land when it is farming season. But it is impractical to say that underneath there are mining operations which are being done. Even you would note that there are certain different mining methods. What if the mining method which is being used is commencing from the top and going down one? How can then the miner be able to, the farmer be able to cultivate his land when it comes to farming season? It is very, very impractical.
So was this one a hit or a miss?
I beg your pardon?
Was this particular provision a hit or a miss?
I would like to think that it was a miss indeed.
Okay, Robert?
Well, as has been said, you're probably going to have, even if it's underground, you're going to have blasting. Are you going to be blasting underneath a farm? It depends. So this is really dependent on what sort of scale of mine we're talking about, what sort of operation we're talking about, what sort of farming we're talking about. But I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, you're not going to reach an agreement. Sometimes it's even for environmental, for health reasons. A plethora of issues are going to arise from that. What you need is something in black and white, and unfortunately, and to the chagrin of some of my colleagues here, unfortunately, because of the nature of what mining is, it's going to have more hazard. It's going to have environmentally. It's going to impact even farming. That's why farming usually goes on the back foot. Also, in terms of strategy, as a nation, if we are saying we're going to build a $12 billion mining economy per year to bring us to an upper middle class income economy as a country, that means that it supersedes us from being the agrarian society that we were to become a mining-led society. What does that mean? That means the bride is going to be mining, and the bridesmaid is definitely going to be farming. You will absolutely always know that you're going to have the second fiddle to the miner. It just makes absolute economic sense. I've got a very soft spot for our traditional setup and the likes. But there's a case in Mashonaland West, I think it is, where 80 families traditionally, we're not even talking about farming in the modern sense of the word, but in our traditional peasant sense. 80 families over a certain piece of land, and underneath that we've got very, very lucrative resources. And when you look at that, and they're saying, and underneath there's the future of the country. Much as I love our traditional setup, and much as I love us to keep our connection to our navel, just the common sense will tell you, I'm sorry, 80 versus a whole 13, 16 million people who are said to benefit. So that's the cost-benefit analysis. And it has to come case by case, minute by minute, analysis by analysis.
So essentially, we might have to favor the mining over the agriculture if the economics makes sense.
It seems most likely, but also why this is a miss. It seems like a Pontius Pilate moment where government wants to wash its hands and say, oh, go and talk and then come back to us. We cannot talk because this is a very contentious issue. It's skirting making a decision on something that ultimately somebody has to make. And when I say body, I mean perhaps this court we were talking about, I mean perhaps the MAB, but it's somebody who has to arbitrate over this, and it is irresponsible for anybody to think that I, the farmer, and he, the miner, will sit down and come up with something, regardless of even just the financial implications, just just
in
reaching
agreement,
an
because
agreement
I mean, at the end
is
of the day,
impossible.
someone has to be moved, and I'm sure no one wants to move because it's
Absolutely.
their land at the end of the day. Now, let's talk about the issues of registry. Now, the bill proposes a centralized digital mining cadastry registry to replace fragmented regional, provincial rather, registers. This is touted as a transparency tool to reduce disputes, eliminate double allocations, as well as improve accountability. In your views now, will this system genuinely bring efficiency as well as the transparency that they're talking about, or do we really risk creating another layer of bureaucracy? Brian?
In as much as it sounds good that we're going to have this register, which is going to avoid double allocation, but as a nation, we lack this ICT hub. For us to have, like, for example, this register, we need an ICT hub. A good investment is supposed to be there. For example, that is another area. That is where we are the issue, the disputes that are coming in terms of title deeds. The country was supposed to move in terms of having digital title deeds. But what is the nation holding back is because we don't have a good ICT hub. So without investment in ICT hub, it's just good on paper. So there's supposed to be a good ICT hub, which is supposed to be a good investment. For example, to avoid hacking, to avoid the system being duplicated or being taken by hackers, or in terms of having. So this issue is going to be a big, without having too much investment into ICT hub. It's just good on paper.
So we continue using our old systems and not really go for the new system because we haven't developed it, or do we embrace it while developing it?
I was just looking on the flashback that the reason why we're not moving to have digital title deeds is the reason that we are going to this to have this digital register. Why? Because the reason which is the nation is holding back in terms of title deeds is because we don't have ICT hub.
Okay.
So the nation, if it does invest into an ICT hub, by that I mean having a system which is guaranteeing security and which have personnel who are trained. Without that investment, it's just good on paper.
Liz Moore, what's your take?
Well, my take regarding this is that it is indeed a good initiative to have the cadastral system, as it is then enhancing the economy of Zimbabwe, whereas we are now moving towards digitalization. Everything is now digitalized, including our codes, our deeds registered companies, etc. But just like the deeds registered company, you would note that there are certain flaws which come with this system. And the big flaw being the infrastructure. We do not have infrastructure in Zimbabwe to make sure or to cater for the cadastral system or digital registration of either mining or title deeds. You'd note that if I'm talking about infrastructure, we do not have the ICT hub, as my little brother said. We also experience issues to do with electricity in Zimbabwe. We also have issues to do with the internet itself, right? So you find out that practically it is very, very difficult to attain such results of digital registration. But theoretically, it is a good initiative. It is a good initiative. You'd also note that recently I heard that the system itself sort of flawed, wherein it changed the beacons in the system itself and not on the ground, but the system itself moved the beacons. So you'd note already that the system needs proper infrastructure. It needs proper expertise for it to function properly.
I mean, as is with any technical gadget, you'd expect some downsides, wouldn't you?
I would expect that, but when the downsides are not,
total disaster.
Yes, it's more like a tsunami. No?
Lincoln, what I've heard so far is it's good, but we don't have the infrastructure. That point aside, my question is now, will it create the effective system we're talking about, the transparency, or another bureaucracy where we're going to have the slow processes once again?
I would like to give reference to what's happening in our courts, where the government introduced what is called IECMS, which is the Integrated Electronic Case Management System. So initially, the IECMS brought some positive things. But as the system now progresses, we are starting to face certain challenges with regards to bureaucracy, like you are saying. There's now more work, system integrity sometimes.
Sorry, before you go forward, what do you mean much work? Because the system was intended to make work easier and lessen the workload instead.
Indeed, indeed. So if you speak to judges, they'll actually tell you that now there is more work. But I'll speak from the legal practitioner side, because now you have to do what you needed to do before the system, which is keeping the physical documents. And now you also have to scan documents, which is a process. So for you to file a process, just an application, you need to spend 2 hours just scanning those documents into the system. And then you need to spend another hour uploading those documents into the system. And then you need to wait for the registrar who's on that other side to verify if the document is okay, or to reject and to give you comments.
The whole process, okay.
So I'm happy with the system, because I think it brings about confidence with regards to mining title. Because the direction that the government is moving is to say, if you have a mining title, it's more or less a title deed. It has guarantees in the constitution. You can do anything that you want to do as long as it's not prohibited by law. So it's going to have the same protection that title deed holders have under the constitution. But again, the issue is on, do we have capacity? And I think government has already acknowledged that they do not have capacity, and for the meantime, they have put it aside. And they have said, let's work on further investment so that we have proper structures to then implement this system into place.
Robert?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the cadastral system was way overdue. A lot of the problems that we have are because of gerrymandering, corrupt practices, let's face this. Double allocation is, in most cases, deliberate. Somebody is, tinkering with the system to help person A and that sort of thing. And those things have flooded our court systems. If you've got a cadastral system and it's flawed, as has been alluded to, we notice that because it's very easy and quick to notice that something has moved, something has shifted, something is wrong. If somebody gerrymanders in Kamativi or wheresoever, in order for you to then see that there's a problem, that somebody has done something deliberately, and to then rectify that and see whether this is a problem or whatsoever and adjudicate it, it takes a hell of a long time than to see that there's something wrong with the system. Let us create systems. Now, the problem in Zimbabwe is we're scared of systems because systems make us accountable. They close loopholes for corruption, and we should be accepting of the fact that corruption thrives whenever anything is being done physically by man, and we can manipulate it.
Robert, before you go forward, then are you then insinuating rather that having an ICT, in quotes, an ICT system is the solution to ending corruption when it comes to double allocations or anything involved in the mining sector?
It is a significant step because, for example, access to certain portals is then granted. When we go from our mines or our claims or leases, we go to certain offices, there's certain bureaucracy to just see some basic stuff. Whereas whenever the things become digital, it's with the click of a button that you can get into a certain portal and see certain things.
The same portal that can still be manipulated and
when it is, it's quicker to note than to get a bus to wheresoever. You see what I'm talking about?
Okay.
I'm not saying it remarkably eliminates or it's a silver bullet, but it becomes increasingly difficult, which is why it was absolutely easy to see that the beacons had moved.
Okay.
Because the system then spoke to somebody, and somebody saw that it is a whole system that is in jeopardy. And the thing with the beauty with the intelligence of where we go with technology is that it works for us, but also it's flawed, and it is within every flaw that we fix and go forward.
And it can still be created to the benefit of someone?
But it can. We're moving forward. Donald Trump lost a teleprompter. Donald Trump lost an elevator, all in the same day. But are we going to throw away the elevator system and the teleprompter system because and use the stairs? No, let us leave the stairs, which we are using now, and let us not be scared to move into uncharted territory, because we know where it's been replicated. We're not the worst story on the continent. There's South Africa to our back garden. We've got Botswana, which is reasonably well. And let's go all over the continent. Where has the cadastral system worked? Where has it not worked? best practices. We are not the worst technological country on the continent, and indeed we can be one of the beacons going forward until we establish something that is absolutely stern.
Now, Chris, is the cadastre system something that you would be ready to really embrace and make sure you really use it to your full advantage, or you'd rather stick to the old traditional system that was in place?
No ways. The cadastre system is progress. When you are implementing something new, there will always be problems. We just have to design the process in a manner that everybody is happy about and put in safeguards. Yeah? Then the system will work.
Now, from a small-scale miner point of view, what are some of the issues that you think some of the miners might raise with the cadastre system?
I think the cadastral system will help in speeding up the issuance of mining title to small-scale miners, for instance. The current system has been rather flawed in that it will take a long time.
Okay.
I have got mining claims or mining applications that are sitting in the system for the past 2-3 years.
Okay.
That doesn't help.
But then the system might help expedite that
That
process.
is our hope.
Okay.
And if it's implemented properly with all the safeguards and so on, that will then happen much, much quicker.
Now, so far we've noted some, I would like to say, positives, and of course you've hit down some of them as the negatives. But one of the most dramatic shifts now in this bill is the abolition of the exclusive prospecting orders, which, well, many people know them as EPOs. Now, these are replaced by smaller, short-term exploration licenses. Advocates say that this opens up opportunities to more players, but critics say serious exploration requires skill and it also requires time. What is your comment on this, Blessmore?
Indeed, I do subscribe to the sentiments we were raised regarding the issue of time, because honestly, a mining adventure needs time. And so if you are given a short period of time, there is no tenure there. For mining to be done prospectively, there is supposed to be tenure. So if a person is then given a short period of time, how are you going to be able to mine, to do the mining adventure to the maximum, so that perhaps the national interests which are being preached will be reached? There's nothing like that when the tenure is small. So I think the tenure, in as much as it brings more players in the field, it should also be done in a certain way where it gives a bit of a long tenure, so that at least we may be able to realize the national interest. Because a person can just come and prospect before they could even do anything, then their license expires.
Okay.
What do you then need to do? You then need to renew the license if it is allowed. But now you will see that for local peoples, for local investors, which are actually excluded in the mining bill, it then becomes difficult for them to come and renew those licenses because they are already excluded. So only the foreigners now will be the players, because they have the financial capacity and the financial muscle to be able to play around those short tenure.
Are they entirely excluded, or they have not been properly defined?
They are not included because the bill is saying foreign investor. But if the bill was saying investor, it means even local and foreign. The
Okay.
bill is saying foreign investor
Now, what
is
would-
in strategic minerals.
Now, where-
Yet you as a local, you are a small scale miner, which is
Okay.
also excluding you because there is an artisanal miner. Because if you go on that definition, there is no artisanal miner in that act.
Which
in
is
that bill.
what everyone has been calling for it to be renewed and reviewed, to say where are the small-scale miners in the bill in its entirety. Now, Lincoln, has it been clearly defined what a short-term lease is going to look like and what a long-term lease is going to look like? Because prospecting, like Blessmore was saying, might take, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, and your license might expire in 7 years, 8 years. Has it really been defined to say what's the short-term lease or what's the long-term lease?
Unfortunately, there's no clear definition, which is one of the things that I think needs to be addressed, because like my colleagues are saying, mining needs heavy infrastructure. So you can't invest in something where there's no security, where you are not sure as to the strength of your security or how long that security is going to exist.
But then will it apply? Is it a blanket application to say the lease is going to apply if you want to prospect for strategic minerals, if you want to actually look for other minerals, or does it differ with the kind of prospecting you want to do?
Well, the thing is, I think I'll set you back a little bit. before we get into that, because with regards EPOs, we were told about the economies of scale and that sort of thing. First, I want to say, according to the Fraser Institute, for example, it takes from exploration right down to discovering a new mine, it takes anything between 25 years to 30 years. And that all starts with exploration. And that's the EPOs that we are talking about. It starts with somebody who goes out there with a whole lot of hope. And remember, in order to, if you go for a greenfield, in order to get a mine, small scale, it's the chances are 1 in 1,000. And in order to get a large-scale mine, reasonably, it's 1 in 3,333. And these are real.
That's quite technical.
Exactly. These are real facts. So when you go to explore on an EPO, the larger the land you have, the better the prospects, because we're looking at scale. If you're going to give me a little tin area, and then I discover gold, that does not mean I've discovered a gold mine. Because just around me where you've demarcated and cut me out, perhaps there's nothing there. So there's one thing about discovering a mineral and totally different about discovering an economically mineable mineral. So the larger you are on an EPO, the more you are, perhaps you have a greater prospect of stumbling upon an economic piece of land where you can mine an economic mineral. When you're going for an EPO and you're exploring for minerals, your equipment is not going to say, oh, there's gold, oh, that's silver. It gives you a whole array. It gives you the entire array. So you cannot go or be given an EPO and be told, oh, you're just looking for antimony. This guy is looking, which is what some other people were brilliantly thinking, that we're going to give one EPO, the same land, to 5 people and say, oh, you're going for diamonds, you're going. It's ridiculous. It's preposterous. It doesn't happen that way. And so there should be a thinking behind cutting it down. What science was used to say, okay, we're cutting it down from this size to the current that's being proposed in the bill? And the tenure, going forward, if it's another 3 years, then renewable, you leave a bit of land, go. What people want to do when they're exploring is they ideally want to get big tracts of land so that in the first tenure, whatever they work on, they relinquish the land that has nothing for them because it's expensive to hold land. And there's this belief that people who have EPOs are making a lot of money from there. No, they're actually sinking money into the ground looking for minerals. So so it's not only the locals who think they're hard done by the new proposal, but you're going to have less people internationally, the so-called foreign investors. Nobody wants to come into a tiny little field with expensive equipment, and it's not, on a cost-benefit analysis, this is a lose-lose for both the local person who wants to explore and the international explorer who wants to
come in with the equipment.
So it's actually both sides of the coin are singing the same song and saying, this doesn't work.
So, Blessmore, this entirely means that we're not really bringing more players onto the field. We're actually turning players away from the field.
I would like to think so, that we are turning a lot of players out of the field of investing, and yet we are preaching that we are bringing in investors. But no investor would really want to come and explore on a small piece of land, because obviously what they are doing is that they are losing instead of benefiting.
Chris, what's your take? Long-term leases, short-term leases, what's your thinking?
On this EPO thing, I think we should also be aware that one of the things that has been happening is that people, organizations would hold large tracts of land under these EPOs, which were long-term, and do nothing about it, right? Speculative behavior. It doesn't serve the nation. And you should then also look at what has been happening, especially in the gold mining sector, gemstones, and so on, where the locals were interested in getting into that sector and mining, right? You could call it small scale, but because of an EPO that's been there for maybe 10 years or whatever, and nothing is really happening. We couldn't do it. So we are also lobbying for these EPOs to be shortened.
So this is
And
actually
the
a good
land-
development
and the land-
from your point.
Right, to be made less.
Okay.
That also opens up space for local people who can also go for EPOs. We can't be expected to compete with foreign investors who
So-
are coming in with a kit of $500 million
Okay. So
or
now,
100 million.
so Brian, shorter leases, smaller pieces of land.
I would first want to address some of the concerns that we raised. Already the local, they are not even included, even in this bill. Because one, they are only included when they say they can mine in from 1 hectare to 40 hectares. By then, they are not included in these things because now, if these small-scale miners or artisanal miners, they are not included in the sense that people are going to be given big land. It's in foreign investors because, like for example, small-scale miners, they're only going to mine gold. The things like diamond and other things are strategic minerals, which are deemed for foreigners. So even the bill is more harm than good to the local.
And for the EPOs?
I would say they need more tenure, not less tenure. It doesn't work if we want to have this economy to be hinged on mining.
So you are quite torn between more tenure, less tenure. Lincoln, I want to now hear again from you. I've heard Robert saying, you know, it really doesn't make sense for a big investor who wants to come and explore. I've had Chris say, well, we can't have people having speculative, you know, hoarding of land. Now, what's your take?
I think the bill tries to address that by introducing the use it, lose it policy, where it is addressing the issues that my learned colleague raises, where people are holding on to large tracts of land and they are not being productive. So I think that deals with that issue. But I definitely agree with my other colleagues that you definitely need long tenure. If you are going to invest a lot, because if you take a look at the processes that you need, just from starting the processes up until maybe the EIA, there's so much investment that you need. So you can't have less tenure because you are definitely not going to be secure in terms of the investment that you put in.
Robert, you seem to have something to say. Yeah.
And currently, there hasn't been holding of land for like 10 years or so, because currently it's 3 years renewable. And then you go back, you renew and say, okay, this is what, and you have to show the results of the first phase. We've done phase 1, and this is what we got. So we're cutting down the land, and now we still need to find out what lies on this. So there has been, nobody has been holding on to land perpetually in EPOs. However, we are going back to the issue of the system again. When was the last time these EPOs were renewed or reviewed? Ordinarily, they should be reviewed 3 months or renewed or struck off 3 months before they run out, so that you know whether you're keeping your drills, your rigs, or whatsoever on there, because demobilization is a very expensive cost. However, in the last phase, which is possibly around 2022, those were let to run out, and then 90 days after that, nothing had happened. Up to today, nothing has happened. But technically, those places are EPOs. So now we're saying that people who are holding on to EPOs since they were last granted in, say, 2019. But in all fairness, when their tenure ended, they had to demobilize. But on paper, that land is their EPO, but they cannot continue to invest in it because even they don't know whether that is their EPO. So what is the problem? The inertia is in the system. The system is flawed. The system is sick. But we're now pointing fingers at each other to say, you're holding on to land. No, I'm not. I can't work with it because I don't know whether it still belongs to me. Maybe tomorrow somebody will come back and say, well, we've cancelled all the EPOs. And then you've been working on them since 2022 until now, and it's all gone. So if a system works, then you will not have any problem. Nobody wants to hold on to, because land is expensive to hold on to, by the way. You're not earning, because you're not mining from it. You are analyzing, you're sampling, you're doing soil sampling, you're doing all that. You're trying to get results, and you're holding on to it.
But Robert, have we not had cases where people actually say we are still looking to see what
Yes,
we
yes,
can
that's
get,
why-
but they are actually mining instead?
Oh no, you cannot, because we have actually, now this is where we look at a system in Zimbabwe where what we should be proud of. When you go to these offices, PMD offices and whatsoever, if there's anything, and even the oversight of people like Environmental Management Agency, they're constantly and consistently on the ground. You can do anything, you cannot be mischievous, because that is one thing that our people, the Ministry of Mines and mines officials should be commended, because you cannot do that. And get away with that. And remember, this is all about scale. Unless you're digging in a little thing and getting something, but with regards EPOs, it's this. That would be the remarkable exception and not the rule.
Now, we have sat here and we just discussed just the tip of the iceberg, because this bill is massive. It has a lot of things included in it, but we've managed to talk about the catastrophe system, the issues of dispute resolution, the new courts and whatnot. If you were to look at this bill from a holistic approach, assuming everyone here has read the bill to its entirety, do you think we are moving towards a modern, transparent mining regime in line with regional best practices, Brian?
It's a yes and a no. But I would say yes, because we have been using the 1961 Act. Although we have been having different views for 10 years, but we are trying to address those issues that were there, which had been happening. But it's not also addressing what is on the ground or the realities of Zimbabwean mining, because the bill is not addressing, for example, it has no definition of an artisanal miner. It is excluding small-scale miners from strategic minerals. So the bill is still lacking the merits of the realities on the ground of mining in Zimbabwe.
Chris, the argument is that small-scale miners are excluded from the bill. How do you feel, and what's your take in regards to the bill in its entirety?
They have to be included. And I think consultations that have happened across the country, even before, were from the miners, small artisanal and small-scale mining sector. That point was put across very, very strongly. They have to be defined. Their role has to be clarified.
Robert, you've shown very strong opinions in regards to this bill. Sometimes you've leaned into it, sometimes you've decided to lean away from it. What do you think?
Well, just perhaps to sum up my thinking, first, the fact that it's a bill from 1961 does not necessarily mean it is bad in its entirety. We had to go back to it, look at what is fit for purpose and what is not, and bring it up to speed with our dreams, hopes, and aspirations as a nation, what our policy is. Do we know our mining policy? I could swear and bet my bottom dollar, none of us has actually seen the Zimbabwe's mining policy. That is a flaw, because in order to create legislation, we should go to the people, create a policy which goes to foreign direct investors, artisanal miners, small-scale miners, middle to large-scale miners, to create a white paper that says who we are as Zimbabweans, what is our resource nationalism like, what is our foreign direct investment attraction like, what is our neighborhood like, what is South Africa doing, what are our neighbors doing, and then we create a policy. That policy speaks to the legislation which we are now discussing. We don't know how this bill came about. And when it comes here, then we speak to it and say, what do we want to fix? And when I say 1961 doesn't mean necessarily throwing the baby with the bathwater. It's because every Sunday we're going to church and we're still using the Bible, which is way older.
But this is a different ball game altogether.
But it is that just tells you that nothing can always be bad in its entirety. But when we get here, and when you speak to two sides of the book, you'll find that the dreams, hopes, and aspirations of the small-scale miners and what they're worried about is exactly what foreign direct investors are worried about. Small-scale miners are saying this is too expensive. They've put strategic minerals as diamonds, and we've been excluded. And FDI is also saying we've been excluded. Why? Because we've got a threshold of 100 million. If you've got 99 million, you can't get into the system. Because we're saying if you're in FDI, you have to put 100 million and above. What happens in between the small-scale miner, the artisanal miner, and the $100 million?
No, that is a whole entire argument that Brian would actually be very willing to have with us right now.
So what this says, if you see two ends of the spectrum agreeing, for slightly different reasons, but saying something's not fit for purpose, it means we need to go to the drawing board to a certain extent, and perhaps start scoring it on a scale of 1 to 10. And I will score it right at the end.
Okay.
But this is what people are crying about. We've been excluded because we've been pushed down, and others are saying, I'm coming into a volatile place. I've got 50 million that I want to bet with first. And you're saying you want 100 million. You know what? I'm going to Botswana with my 50.
So now, gentlemen, I actually have 3 minutes or less left on my clock now, but I still want to hear Blessmore and Lincoln's viewpoints to say, are you saying it's a move in the right direction or it's not? If you can summarize it as shortly as you can.
Well, thank you very much. With all due respect, I would like to frankly put it across that the bill is lacking.
Okay.
However, I'm not saying you should throw it away entirely. Because there are certain aspects which need to be addressed in the bill. We have already seen that there are also good aspects which are also in the bill, which we want to carry forward. However, the aspirations of Zimbabwe being a world class using the bill might not be reached, especially for 2 reasons which I might sum up. If you look at the objectives of the bill itself, these objectives, they hinge on the cadastral system. I will pick 2 probably or 3.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot.
2, the redefinition of farmers and miners' rights. You know that essentially those are not addressed in the bill. Totally, they are not addressed. The issue of small-scale miners, artisanal miners, they are not addressed. So if you look at the objectives themselves, they are not being carried into the bill or they are not implemented. So we need then to go back to the drawing table, as my little colleague has said, and notify those gaps and then perhaps fill in the gaps.
Lincoln, you have less time now.
I know. I think to a large extent, the bill is a move in the right direction. We just need to address a few things. One, duplication of things, because there's now EMA doing this. Now there's also the environmental this in the Mining Act or bill. So we need to remove that. We also need to have clear definitions. We also need to, I think the bill is too large.
Okay.
And to remove some of the technical language so that the locals can have access and can understand. There's so many areas that we can definitely improve in, but it's a move in the
think
step.
to really sum it up and so that we can really hear your standpoints, there's a thing we like to do. Is it a yes or it's a no or from where you stand? Brian?
It's a no.
It's a no for the bill.
It's a
okay.
big no.
Blessmore.
Yes or no? Yes and no.
And it has to be one.
I would like to say it's a yes because still it can be rectified.
Lincoln?
It's a yes.
Okay. Chris?
It's overdue.
So it's a yes. Robert?
Too much discretion to the minister is an absolute no.
Okay, so I don't know how it's ranking right now, but more yeses than nos, I presume.
I think we've got a stolen nose.
Yeah, we have a stolen nose.
We've got a no
We have
masquerading.
someone who's still on the line and they're not really sure. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. We have come to the end of our program today. I would like to thank my guests in studio today, Lincoln Majogo, who is a legal practitioner, Chris Murove, a small-scale miner, Brian Manganye, mines and corporate legal expert, Blessmore Hodzi, legal practitioner, as Robert Mkondiwa, a media consultant. And I've been your host, Faith Nyode. You have been watching Beyond the Dollar. Good evening and enjoy the rest of your viewing.